They're trying to put us into famine because pandemic, famine, and war, they go together, like the triangle of death.
What do you advise people do to get ready for it?
It's not going to be easy, and especially if you live in a major city. People go to cannibalism within 2 weeks. They're going to be coming into your house. When the crickets come out, it's time to do X.
Great advice just for everybody today. I want to dive into some of the stuff you've been talking about, a famine coming and setting the stage. So I know this goes back to your time in the Netherlands. How does that tie in?
Right, or actually, yeah, that's why I went to Netherlands. Now, in 2020, that was the first time I started warning about potential famine because I could see conditions were starting to be set for that, right? And it's all about conditions.
You noticed this in 2020?
Oh, yeah. I was publishing it like almost daily back then to get ready for it. Get ready for famine because it's clearly it's a long flash to bang. And so I've been studying it quite a lot. I read a couple dozen books on it now and on famine. I read more than 60 on pandemic, but I'd read about 40 before the pandemic because pandemic, famine, and war, they go together. They're a triangle. So you see patterns. And if you get a big war, you always get famine and you always get pandemic. If you get a big one. If you get a big pandemic, a very serious one, you'll always get famine and war, right? They just go together like the triangle of death. So I was talking about this in this interview, and a reader, she called up, she was kind, and she's like, you talk about this as if you made it up. And I said, I did. She said, no, it's in the Bible. The four horsemen, right? I was like, yeah, you're right. I literally have plagiarized the Bible. Like, if you're going to plagiarize, I guess go big. But they knew it 2,000 years ago. So all these patterns, nothing's changed. I've started to look at the Bible as like a survival manual. You know what I mean?
Me both.
I mean, seriously, it's like it's all there. Nothing's new under the sun, right? I mean, it's like
a lot of the stuff that's happening today is talked about in the Bible.
It's just
from back then.
It's there. It's like, the only thing they didn't have was iPhones or something. But they saw the human patterns. They knew the human behaviors. The pursuit of money is the root of all evil. How's that? The huge amount. What we see, the problems now is people just going for the dollar, right? Mm-hmm. It's all there, right? And so, yeah. So I saw as you know. It's about conditions. When people, amateur hour is often people are asking me, what will the spark be that does such and such? And I don't mean amateur hour in a diminutive way, but I'm just saying, one thing I learned when I was in the military is I was fortunate enough to be in the same sort of unit that you were, and we were around very serious officers and NCOs, and a lot of them were serious history buffs, right? And what would they often say? It's all about conditions. Set conditions for success, or you're setting conditions for failure. And it's not about sparks. It's a spark that caused the war. It's not, or a spark that you could have a 747 filled with fuel crash into the Darien Gap today, and there's not going to be a forest fire. It's going to burn a big hole, and it's going to burn until the fuel's gone, and it'll be out. There's no conditions for a giant forest fire in the Darien Gap. It'll just be gone. Mm-hmm. And so, but some little kid with a bottle rocket in California, you end up with a town burning down from, a cigarette, right? It's about conditions. It's the same with the famines that are coming. Now, let's rewind in history. As you know, today we have a lot more technology than we had in the past. That's to state the obvious. And one of those is nitrogenous fertilizers. Now, as the populations on Earth grew, people started using, for instance, fertilizer. They used to use guano, bird guano. In fact, we had forgotten the name of the act, but there was a sort of a guano island act. I've forgotten the name of it. But if somebody found an island that was, mostly guano anywhere in the world, the U.S. military would come with full force and guard that island because we would use that. There was wars fought over guano, right? Because that was the original nitrogenous fertilizer, right? So now as populations grew and we cut off Germany from guano and whatnot. And by the way, guano is believed to be what led to at least the potato famine in Ireland that started in roughly 1845. People argue about that, but and ended in maybe 9 years. They argue about when it started and ended, but it may have been some sort of disease that was in the bat guano, but this is unclear, but that's a separate story. But the bottom line is the Germans, as you know, are quite serious about science, and they have been for a long time. And they had serious chemists, and one was named Fritz Haber. And Fritz Haber in 1903 wrote a book on, he thought that you could take hydrogen off of the natural gas. This is very important. And you could combine it with the nitrogen that we're breathing and make ammonia, right? And with that ammonia, you could make explosives, right? And you could make fertilizers. And so both, right? So, but it was very difficult to do it. So he theorized it in that book on thermodynamics, and then in 1903, and then in 1908, he actually made a little bit, right? But it was difficult. He was a good guy at little stuff, but not. So that's when Karl Bosch came along. Karl Bosch is another German chemist, and he was able to take that really smart idea and make it industrial. That's why it's now called the Haber-Bosch process. Fritz Haber came up with the idea. Karl Bosch took it corporate. And they started at Ludwigshafen, Germany, at BASF plant, right? The BASF plant, BASF this is really important. So I hope everybody's paying attention because this is all going to come together. Mm-hmm. The BASF plant on the Rhine River dumps out at Rotterdam. And interestingly, so they started making the nitrogenous fertilizers there in 1914, right? Same year the Panama Canal opened, right? Coincidentally. And so the population on Earth started to explode, partly because of increased trade. The ships were bigger, the ships were faster, the trains were bigger, refrigeration, all kinds of things. But a huge one was nitrogenous fertilizers, right? So other companies started to make nitrogenous fertilizers. A huge component of these nitrogenous fertilizers, though, is natural gas, because you need that hydrogen, right? You can make it other ways, but in reality, it's natural gas, right? And so one of the reasons I've been so accurate on the wars, and that's what I'm actually known for, is being accurate way ahead of time, is because when I was a kid, I was pretty much addicted to physics, right? I always thought I would grow up to become a physicist, and somehow I grew up to be in the Darien Gap. But, so it's kind of it's only in America can you do these like wild go around Pluto and loop back and land on Mars, And so, but that trained my way of thinking, right? Reading people like Richard Feynman and whatnot, and all these physicists, and not teaching you what to think, but how to to develop ways of thinking that you can try to arrive at truth, right? That's why I love physics so much. Actually, I started loving chemistry, and I was like, that's just chemistry. Physics is where I can find the truth, right? And that's why I spent so much time on that. And but one of the things I've learned from reading those guys so many years, especially when I was younger, was if you have a theory, I call it the paradigm, and it's inaccurate, then you either have to tweak it or throw it out, right? Never get emotionally stuck on your ideas, right? Mm-hmm. It's just an idea.
Man, that's great advice just for everybody today.
Yeah. I mean, I learned it from those old physicists. They would be like, so-and-so got stuck on his idea and basically became a worthless scientist, you know what I mean? Because he became emotional about his idea. It's like you have to be, and Einstein never got that way to my knowledge. I read a lot of his work, and he never got stuck on his ideas. He was always like, I'm probably wrong. I might be wrong about gravitational lensing or whatever. It turned out he was completely right about gravitational lensing and these sorts of things, right? And so anyway, so I just learned how to. And so I would write, when I was a teenager, I would write down, what's the percentage chance that I think, that bird's going to take off in the next 5 minutes based on the time of day and all this stuff. And I'm just like, 70, and I would just start training myself to over time, I'd done that a lot, to the point where I was starting to get a little bit better at actually guessing things. So I thought that the Darien Gap might open it up, and now it is, right? I thought that they might tear down the wall on the border, and I started publishing this immediately when Biden was installed. Now, they haven't torn it down, but what they have done is just leave it open, basically. It doesn't exist anymore, right? And all of this was accurate based on the paradigm. Now, the paradigm, I also thought, something will happen to Nord Stream. So I went to BASF twice, right? And on the second time, we're doing a tour of BASF, and I asked the guy, what happens if Nord Stream gets interrupted? Now, keep in mind, I had bought an iPad that was on a website that did nothing but watch the flows at Nord Stream. And so you could see minute by minute, it would update the flows, right? Because I expected, if my paradigm was right, that natural gas would be interrupted because I think they're trying to put us in famine, right? And so we're in the plant at BASF in Ludwigshafen, Germany. I said to the man that was giving us a tour, what happens if Nord Stream gets interrupted? He said, BASF is dead. Well, it's not dead because shortly after that, months later, it was bubbling to the surface of the sea, right? And how did I get that right? Why was I publishing in advance something may happen to Nord Stream? And then it happened. Everybody's like, how'd you get that right? Did you have something to do with it? Nope. That's what I think was going to happen.
This is that article out there?
I would just put it like on Twitter and that sort of thing.
So we can find it on Twitter?
Oh, yeah. You can find it on interviews that I did. Why was I even at BASF? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Twice.
Yeah.
You know, because that's where the Haber-Bosch press. Okay, so now last March I was in Netherlands again. They had elections, and then I went to Groningen gas fields. That's the biggest gas field in Europe is in Netherlands. And I was publishing last March, April, and so I think they're going to close Groningen gas field. And people are like, you're crazy. They're not going to close that. They closed it. It's now closed. Why did I get it right? Not by going through every little fact and trying to figure out if he's right, she's right. Skip past all that nonsense. You'll get confused. It's confusing. What does the paradigm predict?
Managing a household, especially with kids, is no small feat. I totally get it, and that's why I've made sure my family has a plan in place if something unexpected ever happens. But what about you? Do you have a plan to help protect your family's financial future? Don't worry. Fabric by Gerber Life can help. Fabric by Gerber Life is term life insurance you can get done today. Made for busy parents like you, all online, on your schedule, right from your couch. You could be covered in under 10 minutes with no health exam required. Fabric has flexible, high-quality policies that fit your family and your budget, like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. Fabric also has free digital wills, tools to invest in your kids' future, and more, all right from your phone. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/srclips. That's meetfabric.com/srclips. meetfabric.com/srclips. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions.
That they're trying to put us into famine. If I'm trying to put us into famine, I'm going to start turning off all those natural gas switches. I'm going to reduce the nitrogenous fertilizers. Now, going into famine, there's many things that can cause famine, that can lead to famine. There's different types of famine. For instance, you don't really, interestingly, I found in a 1911 Encyclopedia Britannica, people can find this. It's a 1910, 1911, I think, is that edition. I found it in a friend's home in Texas. And I went right to F for famine. I wanted to see what they were saying about it. This is before Haber-Bosch process was we're talking 1911. Remember, 1914 is when that actually started. And this article is very well written, but it goes and it talks about, well, the big famines are probably over. There probably won't be any more big ones now because we have faster ships, bigger ships, these sorts of things, bigger trains, faster trains. But what they were wrong about was how evil man can be. Because the biggest famines have been man-made, like by Stalin and the Holodomor, like by Mao, by so many of these famines. The 1845 to 1854 famine in Ireland was not all about the fungus and the black potatoes, right? A lot of it was caused by the English cutting them off. Oftentimes when you get into famine, all these other conditions happen, and then your enemy exploits cuts off your ports.
So with the famine that's coming, what do you advise people do to get ready for it? Well,
one thing's for sure, it's not going to be easy, and especially if you live in a major city. One Dutch man that survived the Hungerwinter, that was the Hunger Winter of 1944-45, he said, it doesn't matter if you have a rifle because they're going to come at you with, 10, 20 men with rifles, right? You're not going to defend your food with a rifle. It's just not going to happen. You're going to have to be prepared in some ways. One of the things you'll find in famines is people hide food. Actually, the the KGB seems to have been a derivative of actually Stalin looking for people hiding food, believe it or not, in Ukraine, in the Holodomor. It's interesting because people found so many clever ways to hide food. They would have a garden that really doesn't produce much, but underneath it, that's how they cover up the burying, or the digging and that sort of thing. But and actually, the bottom line is everybody is going to have a different solution. I mean, if you live in Manhattan, I think you're crazy. I mean, because, straight up, I mean, what are you going to do in Manhattan when everybody's hungry? I mean, people go to cannibalism within 2 weeks, easy. Not everybody. Some people starve to death and never do it, but others go straight to it instantly. And a lot of these people coming in, by the way, through the Darien Gap, I mean, these are people that come from places where they still do. By the way, cannibalism does still exist on planet Earth. Mm-hmm. I assure you, I don't have to assure you, you know that. But a lot of these people coming in are not quite the same as the people, your neighbor. And the moment they get hungry, they're coming into your house, right? Or the moment almost anybody gets hungry, they're going to be coming into your house.
Yeah, once desperation hits.
Everybody's going to have their own solution, but it's going to have to be community based. I mean, one of the things one retired military man told me down in Texas, he started to arrange his community around his church. He went to church and he started taking an inventory of everybody's skills, like what do you know how to do roofs, you know how to do plumbing, you know how to do electrical, whatever, right? So that way everybody knows who knows how to do what, and pulling them together as a community, working with radios, figuring out how to keep communication with each other and that sort of thing. All the stuff that would take to make a small community, right? And one older woman, she's a widow. She's like, I don't have any skills. I just raised my children and my grandchildren and my great grandchildren. He's like, yeah, if you raise that many generations of kids, you got a lot of skills. And he's like, no, just tell me how did you raise them? She's like, well, I canned food. And he's like, that's it. All right, you're in charge of canning operations. So what I want you to do is tell me what you need. Tell me everything you need, and then I'll get it. I'll make it appear, and you start teaching the young people how to can.
So set up a community.
That's right. And just like everybody has something, if their heart's in the right place, they have a job, right? Then it takes the leaders, obviously, to pull them together and get everybody, working in their right ways and that sort of thing. But you're not going to make it through without a community, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to have to be able to defend yourself, obviously. But we have a predatory government. Another thing that I've noticed in famines, and this is important, is the governments always go after the farmers. They and every famine I've read about, they always blame the farmers too. They always say, "Oh, it's the farmers. It's the Amish people's fault for something." You know what I mean? It's whoever's fault. They're the ones gouging you for prices or whatever, right? And then they come and then they take over those facilities, and nobody knows how to farm like the farm. That's one of the things I wanted to say. Finish what I was thinking about the Dutch. A lot of those farmers who have been farming or fishing that land or water for so many years, they know exactly when to plant. Like, when the last snow melts in that little crease over there, that's when we plant. It's a very local knowledge. And that's one of the ways they get such high production from the land. First of all, it's partly scientific, increased, scientific methods, but they know their patch of turf very well. When the crickets come out, it's time to do X. You know what I mean? It's but if you take them away from that land, they're not going to be as good a farmer if you put them in Kansas. They're still going to be a good farmer, I'm sure, but you know what I'm saying.
I do.
They got to fight their own terrain.
So, for the people that are listening that we've just scared the hell out of with the famine, best thing is for them to build community.
Build community, definitely. And you need a way to defend yourself. And again, I mean, if you live in a city, I don't know what advice to give you other than get out.
Yeah.
I mean, would that cause the cities to empty out? I mean, look what's happened. Look who's moving into New York. People that don't speak English, they don't even know how to flush a toilet. I assure you, I spend most of my life in these other countries, and some fish don't mix well in the same aquarium. There's cultures that just don't go well together, right?
Yeah.
Bottom line, you put some sort of fish with the goldfish. Bye-bye goldfish.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen.
Well, get out of the city. But
I hate to say it, but I mean, that's what I would do.
Yeah. No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.